everyone. My name is Ankit Puri. Thank you so much for joining for this webinar. I'm the founder at Voiceless India. Voiceless India is an organization that aims to promote veganism, animal rights, and environmental issues, for which we conduct multiple projects, from reflective color drives to sterilization drives to workshops with school and college students to wall painting drives and many more such initiatives. We will be sharing the link to our website and a lot of other resources of Voiceless India, of Roshni Sangvi, as well as other resources in our chat box. So do keep a tab on the chat box throughout the webinar. So throughout the month of June 2021, we are running the campaign called Red Not White, Dairy is Utter Nonsense. Now, the reason for this campaign is that June is also recognized as International Dairy Month. And throughout this month, we are trying to spread awareness about the ethical, environmental, and health aspects of consuming dairy. So we are conducting webinars, we are conducting workshops, we're conducting multiple activities to promote this message. So thank you so much for joining today. Today we have Roshni Sangvi, who will be facilitating the session. She is a plant-based sports nutritionist. And over to you, Panchajanya. Panchajanya will be moderating the session today. So we hope that this session is insightful for everyone who has joined it, and we hope that you take away something from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankit. Okay, so to start off with, Call for Compassion is a series of webinars that's conducted by Voiceless India. It revolves around various topics like animal rights, environmental conservation, and veganism. And the basic aim of these webinars is to substantiate the fact that, a compassion-filled lifestyle is not just sustainable, but also really wholesome. So often, we have been told that milk is it's like the only sole source of calcium, and how ghee is the most essential and easily available lubricant for our joints. And of course, the most common question that a lot of people are perplexed about is that, whether a plant-based diet is nutritious, especially for sports persons and those who are looking to gain weight and build body mass. So today we in our webinar today, milking dairy out of fitness, all of these questions and a lot more questions will be addressed by our facilitator. So I'm truly overjoyed to welcome our facilitator for today, Ms. Roshni Sangvi. She's an award-winning plant-based sports nutritionist and a renowned body transformation specialist based in Bangalore. She is recognized for top-class nutrition diet plans that are proven in reversing diseases like PCOS, diabetes, thyroid, and various other lifestyle, and of course promoting a very healthy lifestyle. So her unique approach to this is more focused, and it's really loved, and a lot of people have been helped by it too. It basically promotes adopting a healthy lifestyle, and she's also considered, and of course has been awarded the title of best nutritionist in Bangalore for weight loss by Ghost Gym India. Thank you so much, Roshni, for joining us today. It's great to have you here. And all of us here are truly looking forward to gaining insights from you.
Thank you so much, Panchajanya. That was really nice of you. Thank you,
But
Ankit, and thank you so much for
I could take a
organizing this.
minute.
Yeah,
Sure,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Just if I could take a minute, I'm sorry to cut you off. But there are a couple of things that I request the audience to take note of in order to ensure that there is a disruption-free discussion. All the participants are requested to keep their microphones muted and webcams switched off through the entire session. And I feel really elated to share this with you that we received an overwhelming response for the webinar with participants from over 22 cities, including India and abroad. So a big thank you to all the participants for submitting their specific questions through the Google form that we circulated. We will be taking up these questions during the Q&A segment towards the end of the webinar. And with any more questions that you have, feel free to drop them in the chat box today. So Roshni will address them towards the end in the Q&A session. Please take over, Roshni. The floor is all yours.
Thank you again. Because there's so much we can talk about fitness and dairy industry in general. But I definitely want to make this webinar more towards the guys who are here, who came live and who made an effort. And I definitely want to be able to answer your questions first because you came here. Um, I also see a lot of my clients on the list, which is always a really nice thing. I Thank you so much, Ankit, first of all, and Voiceless India for hosting this. I remember meeting Ankit in person a few years ago and thinking to myself, this is such a young kid doing so much. He's still young, he's still a young kid, and doing so much in terms of compassion towards animals and actually genuinely taking steps towards making a difference and making an improvement. So hats off Voiceless India in terms of how much you've grown in such a short time, and more power and love to you in terms of how you're able to help people in terms of transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle. So we will be talking about dairy, the fitness industry, and how important dairy is when it comes to staying fit and staying healthy. Let me start this off with a story. A couple of days back, my one of my team members gave me a call. She's been working with me for the past 15, or at least 10 years, like a decade. She's been working with me for a very, very long time. She was not on a plant-based diet before. She transitioned through the process, working with clients, working with me. And she gave me a call yesterday, and she just delivered a baby about a year and a half back. And she was concerned, and she asked me that, should I put my baby on cow's milk? Now, this is coming from someone who's experimented with a plant-based diet herself. She's transitioned into a plant-based diet herself, seen the benefits of a plant-based diet, knows that dairy is really bad for the body, but was concerned about her little child who's a year and a half, and wanted to know from me if the baby should be put on cow's milk at all. So, and I was surprised. I was like, why is this question even coming? Because you know that, milk is bad for you. But that also sort of made me start thinking that we are constantly bombarded with advertisements all the time. Um, about how milk is important, especially being in India, and how dairy is important for strong bones, and you won't get your calcium otherwise, you won't get proteins otherwise, especially for growing kids. Kids are not going to grow; they are not going to grow to the optimal capacity. They won't grow tall enough, and we are constantly told this all the time. So it takes all of you present here who are not on a plant-based diet or are still consuming dairy but have come here to see how this could be harmful to your health. First of all, it takes a lot of guts because it's not easy going against society norms. In fact, if you even talk to a lot of doctors, they're going to say that, you should be drinking milk, which is really sad because no one wants to look at the research. And this was also me when I got into the fitness industry a few years back, not a few years, well, like a decade back. I was not born vegan or raised vegan. I was introduced to a vegan lifestyle at the age of 18, but refused to transition till I was about 21, 22, or much later. So it took me a long time myself to transition because I was so scared being in the fitness industry that I would lose my muscle mass. I wouldn't be able to perform to my optimal capacity. My strength would go down. My bones would get weaker. I would get weaker, and I didn't want to get weaker. But just a few weeks I took up a plant-based diet as a challenge. So just a few weeks of dropping dairy, just a few weeks of dropping whey and casein. Whey protein and casein was something which a lot of bodybuilders commonly take, and which I was very, very used to sort of taking as part of my daily routine. So just a few weeks of dropping it, I noticed that, I was actually getting stronger. And I don't mean to just say I was getting stronger. As a bodybuilder, you're very, very in tune, not only to your body, but measurements and your progress matters. So we do like a check-in every week where we are putting down the weights we are lifting and how much we are, our training volume, what we say, our training volume, and different things are calculated at the weekend. So I was seeing the graphs going high. So when I saw my numbers improving, and this was also the same time I came across the book, The China Study. I highly suggest everyone to read it. It's one of the first book I picked up from a nutrition perspective when I was exploring nutrition. And the China Study talks about how dairy is really carcinogenic for the body. It's cancer causing. The China study actually breaks down multiple different illnesses and talks about how dairy is bad, in terms of hypertension, heart diseases. But carcinogenic was the first thing. Cancer causing was the first thing that struck to me. The China study is basically the biggest study ever done on the human population, where they compared the population of China, and they saw that people living in rural China, in the poorer parts, in the poorer neighborhoods, who did not have access to a lot of meat and dairy, they didn't have access to it. Their diet was very different from people living in urban China, the richer parts where they had access to a lot of meat and dairy. And people living in the rural areas tend to have lesser cases of heart diseases, heart attacks, diabetes, and all of this, versus people living in the the richer parts. And they started noticing, why is this happening? Why are people who are eating you know sort of like a poorer diet tend to have tend to do better in terms of longevity. They live longer. And coming to this was another story which recently happened on the dining table. We were sitting around the dining table, my family and I, and my dad is very, very anti-vegan, coming from, growing up in Gujarat. Again, a very strong influence of dairy from his parents. There was a lot of ghee, butter always used in food, and milk was given sort of a very, very central position around the diet. So we were talking, and I was trying to explain him how it's so bad for the bones. uh, and it reduces your longevity. You live shorter if you're consuming a lot of dairy. And he said, well, but that's not true. Countries like Switzerland, which have the highest amount of dairy consumption, tend to live longer. And I was like, let's just Google that and check if that's true. So we actually did Google it. We looked at countries with the highest consumption of dairy consumption. Switzerland is not even in the top 10. You have New Zealand, you have multiple other places. But if you look at the top 5 countries, and this is a simple Google search, with the highest amount of dairy consumption, they tend to have the shortest lifespan. And they tend to have more cases of osteoporosis, which is bone fractures, and osteopenia and hip fractures, versus countries with the least amount of dairy consumption, countries which fall under the blue zones. Blue zones are basically places on earth when naturally the consumption of meat and dairy is very less. They follow a 90% vegan diet, a predominantly vegan diet, tend to have the least cases when it comes to osteoporosis, hip fractures, but they also live the longest. So their longevity is much longer. And we are not talking about live the longest as in the last 10 years of your life are spent on bed. When we talk about live the longest, they actually are living a very healthy life. And cases of cancer is almost non-existent. Cases of PCOS and metabolic diseases is pretty much non-existent. So why is this is there's a lot of science now. And because I come from a holistic nutritionist point of view, for me science is important. When I'm telling something to clients, I want to make sure that I'm not giving them random suggestions of Google. So I go through a lot of literature and science and research papers. But if you even do like simple reading, you'll find out that dairy is actually really bad for the body. It's not good for the body. So what I'm going to do now is again host. I need to be able to share my screen because I have a presentation. So let's just look at some statistics. So basically, if you look at just India, obviously the dairy industry in India is huge. India's first among all countries in both production and the consumption of milk. India has the world's largest dairy herd with over 300 million liters of milk produced. And a lot of that milk, because we can't keep up with the capacity of the milk produced, is synthetic milk. Synthetic milk is basically not even milk. It's a milk with a combination of urea, detergent powders, vegetable oils, fats, salt, and water. And this is sold basically as milk. So if you look around Diwali, when the production of sweets increases in India, you can't really suddenly increase the population of cows and then bring it down after Diwali. So a lot of the milk sold is not even really milk. It's just synthetic milk. It's just artificially, raised, artificially produced milk. If your question is this better than, is this not better? So if you're not getting synthetic milk and you're getting regular milk, is it better for your health? I'll come to that in a bit, but I'm just trying to give you a background of what you're getting. In fact, I've written a blog about this in which I want to say it's about 80% or somewhere around 80% of the milk which people consume is basically synthetic milk. So that's a very, very huge number. It's more profitable to the dairy farmers if they're mixing just, urea and detergent powder and selling it to you as milk versus the amount of money it takes to raise the cattle to be, sort of sold as milk. So that is one thing. But also in terms of some other statistics, India is known as the diabetes capital of the world, and milk is strongly related to diabetes. India ranks number 3 in terms of the global obesity statistics. So we are more obese now than ever before. And we have about 4.77 million people dying of cardiovascular diseases every year. 4.77, that's a lot of people, which shouldn't be dying of heart diseases at such a young age. So what is happening? Something in our diet is going wrong. Something is not going right, and which is leading to, us being compared to the global standards, we are this. Of course, when you look at our food is changed. Like 20 years back, if you look at a cup of coffee versus a cup of coffee you get now, 20 years back it was 45 calories. Now it's about 330 calories. Um, We are drinking more milk than before. We are consuming more than before. We are taking in more calories than before. While I was preparing for this particular presentation, I came across this, which was a very interesting comparison. This was an advertisement which was by the dairy industry, and they compared a glass of dairy milk with a glass of rice milk. And if you see the comparison side by side, they say that dairy milk is just a glass of pure dairy milk has vitamin A, vitamin D, and it's just milk. There's no adulteration. There's nothing added to it. But if you look at rice milk is basically water. There's canola oil and sunflower oil, safflower oil. There's sea salt, and then there's brown rice. So if you compare it side by side, then what they're trying to basically say is a glass of rice milk is not rice, is not milk, and it has more adulteration because it has oils and sea salt versus just a glass of milk, which is not really true. I mean, for most brands, it's not really true. Of course, if you're getting like a flavored soy milk, like a soy vanilla flavored or chocolate flavored soy milk, just like a chocolate flavored dairy milk, you're going to have certain additives. But with most milk brands, if you look at the ingredient content, it'll just say, if it's an almond milk, it'll just say almonds and waters. They don't have any canola oil or sunflower oil or anything like that. But what you're not seeing over here is a glass of dairy milk is not just milk. This list of chemicals is really the even the basic, like if you're getting your milk from a very good source like an organic milk, it has a minimum of this many amount of chemicals. So when animals are raised, cattle are raised in dairy farms, there's not a lot of space because space is money. There's not a lot of agricultural space, so cows are kept in very small constrained spaces, which creates a lot of diseases because they're urinating, they're passing feces in the same area, they're standing, and they're obviously hormonated a lot. So it creates a lot of diseases. And when the cows have diseases, the easiest thing for the farmers to do is give them antibiotics and anti-inflammatory medication for them to heal. And what do you think happens when all of this is making its way into your glass of milk? So with your glass of milk, you're mostly taking a lot of antibiotics, anti-inflammatory injections, which are given to the animals. And this is what's causing a lot of diseases to us as humans. So when you're drinking a glass of milk, keep that in mind. But who thinks that, milk coming from let's say you have a cow at home. Let's say you have your own cow at home. Is the milk coming from your own cow any healthier? Let's just, you know, raise your hands if you think.
Roshni, would it be fine if you can take up the questions that we've already received first, and
Yeah,
by that
we
time
can.
they can, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. So to start off with, the question and answer starts off with a very basic and pertinent question like, is dairy necessary for kids? And if not, then what should be kept in mind?
Yeah. And that is very concerning among most parents, that your kids are not going to grow if they're not going to consume dairy. Only
Definitely.
keeping dairy off the diet itself is more than enough to start seeing benefits in terms of the kids growing better. That's You're not even adding anything. You are only keeping dairy off the diet. With regard to, it's not about a vegan diet. It's about any nutritional changes, no matter what kind of diet you're following or no matter what kind of nutritional changes you're making. Working with a nutritionist is very, very important, because it's important because you don't know what, if you're training your child to be an athlete, you want to start young. You want to make sure they're getting the nutritional source. In general, for people all over the world, like you would get a medical checkup done once in a year, just to be safe, just to make sure you're on the right direction, making sure that you work with a nutritionist once in a year to make sure that you're getting your micronutrient stores replenished is very, very important. Most often people come to me and they say, I've been having hair fall since the past 5 years, or dry skin, irregular periods since the past so many years. I've had migraines since the past so many years. And these are easy fixes. These can be fixed by making sure you're getting enough micronutrients. So for a small child, if you're working, you don't have to worry about calcium or protein or anything when you stop consuming dairy. In fact, you're doing, if anything, much better for the child. um, Work with a nutritionist because it's age dependent, but some of the alternative sources which you want to start including are sesame seeds are extremely important, making it a regular part of the diet. dark green leafy vegetables, getting them used to the taste of vegetables so they grow up liking vegetables. Because the more you eat a certain kind of food, the more you're growing the population of that particular colony of bacteria which digest that food. So the more kale I eat, the more my gut loves kale, the more I look forward to eating kale. But if I eat kale like once in a week and I really hate it, and I'm not going to try to make an attempt to eat it more often, I'm not going to like it because I don't have that particular colony of bacteria in my gut to help me digest it. So your taste buds can absolutely be trained, and it can be trained in as little as 2 to 3 weeks. It's not even a long time. So start them young, get their taste buds to eat food which is nutritious, from all nutritious, no superfoods or anything, just nutritious food. That's about it. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So the second question is, I want to build more muscle. So what are the important nutrients required, and from what source can they, acquire those nutrients?
Yeah. Our misconception about muscles, we have a lot of misconception about muscles. Biggest one being muscles are made up of only proteins. Muscles are not made up of only proteins. Muscles require a combination of proteins, good amount of hydration, water, and carbohydrates. So if you're not getting your carbohydrate stores for the day, and you're only worried about your protein stores, and you're not getting hydrated, you're not sleeping well, you're not challenging your muscle fibers enough, then no matter what you do, you're going to start, and you're taking in excess protein in the name of muscle mass. You're not going to build muscle mass, but you're going to put an excess overload on your kidneys and liver to flush out all the proteins. Unlike carbohydrates and fats, when you take excess carbohydrates, when I eat too much of carbs, excess carbohydrates are converted into fats and stored in the body. Excess fats are stored in the body as body fat. Excess proteins is too toxic for the body from any sources, plants or animals. Animals being more because it's acidic, but excess protein, the body does not want to handle it. So it'll try to flush out as much as possible. Some of it gets converted into carbs and then fats, but that process of conversion is too much for the body in terms of calorically taxing. So your body wants to store calorie, it doesn't want to use it up. So body will do everything possible to flush extra proteins out. And this, if you're taking, like, let's say your daily requirement is 50 grams, and over time, again and again, you're trying to take 100 and 150 grams of proteins, your body is not going to build extra muscle mass. It's just trying to flush out the extra proteins. The ones which are not flushed out are converted into stones, kidney, gallbladder stones, tumors, and cancers. So you don't want excess of anything. But muscle building is more about how much you're challenging your muscle fibers. In the gym, I've seen a lot of people, in the name of muscle building, they just want to sort of eat extra protein. In fact, I just recently saw a video of some Instagram influencer who said post COVID, make sure you're eating a lot of proteins. If you have COVID and post COVID, eat a lot of proteins from different sources. And that's not right. I mean, you think you eat proteins, you're not going to the gym, you're not working out because you're recovering, and your muscles will just build. If that were the case, then everyone who was a non-vegetarian would have six pack. That's not true. I mean, your muscles are not going to just build magically because of proteins. Post COVID, you want to make sure you're getting micronutrients. It's not so much about proteins. Can we take the question from Ginny, because she's waiting and she's raised her hand,
Sure,
and then we can continue with,
definitely.
yeah. Ginny, you can unmute yourself and just ask your question.
Absolutely. Hi, Roshni.
Hi.
It's actually Guinea.
Okay, Ginny. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. It's one of my pet peeves. So first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful session. You know, in the last 30 minutes, I actually learned a lot from you. I pay a lot of respect to the nutrition. And, you know, I was diagnosed with PCOD when I was 15, and now I'm 36. So in the last 10 years, the lifestyle changes I have made, like, you know, it has made a big deal. And my PCOD is absolutely gone. It's just gone. When everybody told me that it can never leave your body, it's absolutely gone. So now I'm into the transitioning phase, and I'm actually becoming vegan. I still say I'm 80% vegan, okay? Because as you said, when dairy is such an important part of your upbringing, it's just impossible to leave it all of a sudden. You know, and the families are, of course, they put a lot of pressure. What you're doing is absolutely wrong and everything. So now I have started replacing things, because, you know, leaving is not an option. You have to replace dairy with other nutritional things, because your body needs nutrition. So for example, butters, I have switched to nut butters. The oil I have switched to, cold pressed sesame oil. But one thing I always struggle with, and I need to ask this question from you, is, I cannot eat dry chapatis. And we have grown up eating chapatis with ghee. And I cannot find a replacement for ghee. And I have tried my best. The dry chapati it just doesn't go down under my throat. So, what do you think is an alternative for that?
I'll leave you a link for your ghee alternative, something which is delivered
Please.
all across India, and they've done a fabulous job. I'm not saying it's as good or bad for you as ghee is. So
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a worse alternative, but I'm also not saying it's a healthier alternative, because ghee,
Okay.
if you haven't, I'm also going to leave a link to a video I did on ghee. And sorry, the host, you'll have to make me the host again because I'm not able to share anything in the chat. Okay, I think the chat feature itself is off. Never mind. So
Yes,
it's
I
called,
cannot see that feature either. The
I
chat
can't, yeah,
feature
so
is
I
not
can't see.
there.
Yeah. It's called Live Yum, LIVEYUM. But
Okay.
if you also go on my
Okay.
Instagram, the last post on Instagram, I might post today
Okay.
evening. So first or the second post on Instagram is about top 3 ghee and butter alternatives. I've done all
Okay.
3 places in
Okay.
Bangalore, but the one on ghee is not. You can get it really anywhere. And it's a fabulous option. It's Live Yum has done a fabulous job with the ghee alternative. It also stores really well. So
Okay.
we get it like maybe once in 15 days, and it stores very well. Our home, because we're Gujarati, there's a lot of Gujarati sweet dishes made. So everything from
Hmm.
shira to god papdi, if people know what I'm talking about, ghee on the khichdi and dal doklis and everything,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rotis, we use the
Yeah.
ghee from Live Yum, and the
Okay.
entire family is adopted to it. So we don't make ghee home anymore since
Okay.
a couple of,
Okay.
I think at least a year now, because Live Yum has
Okay.
done a really good job. So that you can try that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
of course. Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead with the next question.
Okay. Okay, sure. So the next question is basically, how do you get B12 on a vegan diet?
Yeah, good question. It's not a vegan problem. It's a world problem in general because B12 is found in the microbiomes which live in the soil. So if you look at, I'm saying when we were growing up, but I'm 30, so you do the math. But a few decades back, we used to go out and play a lot. And we used to play in the sand. We used to play in the mud. We used to play in contact with earth. In fact, now it's a very popular phenomenon called earthing or grounding, where you spend 20 minutes walking outdoors in the garden or in the soil. There was this very beautiful, I don't know, I don't want to say beautiful, but a technologically advanced thing which I saw recently, where you have a carpet which you keep at your home. So where I'm sitting right now, I have a carpet down, and the carpet is electrically connected with outdoor. So there's an electric wire going from the carpet to, I think it's the garden outdoor, or I don't know how they connect it, but apparently it takes a lot of vibrations from there, and is you can sit at home and still experience the earth. So that was the concept behind this technological advance. But we used to go outdoors a lot, and when we used to go outdoors and spend time outdoors, we used to get our B12 naturally because we were in contact with the earth. We don't do that anymore. And in fact, if you have a little bit of sand or mud in your hand, you will overwash it. You'll go out and wash it. All of us have become slightly OCD in that manner. Our fruits and vegetables are overwashed. So I remember when I was about 16, 17, um, we were traveling around UK on a road trip, and we stopped somewhere to do strawberry picking, and we had picked these strawberries, and we went to the owner of the farm, and we asked the farm owner, where do I wash it, because I want to eat it. And he was this old guy, and he's like, oh, we never wash our strawberries, you just eat it like that. So we were okay doing that back then, but I cannot imagine going to the same farm and doing the same thing again, because I would also be a little OCD not washing my fruits and vegetables, because we are over sanitizing everything, and even our water is over sanitized. We are not getting waters, it's chlorinated. A lot of things are added to the water, RO and carbon filters and all of that. So our B12 is just taken out. Sort of, we are not getting access to it. It's like sunlight, we are not getting sunlight anymore. Only natural source of B12 right now is to get a supplement, or go out, spend time in the garden, about 30 minutes per day, include some form of gardening. include some form of outdoor activities, and get your B12 levels checked once in 6 months to make sure you're getting enough, or take a supplement. There's no other alternative to B12.
So the next question is, are vegan protein powders necessary for building mass?
Yeah.
And also,
It
if you
depends.
could elaborate a little bit more on what vegan protein powders are, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
It depends on your health goals, but if your goal is fat loss, and I've seen this very commonly because I operate a gym, I own a gym, and I see people in the gym coming all the time, especially in their 100 kgs plus 100 kgs, and even before they come to enroll at the gym, they would have already gone to the supplement store, which is right below, and get their stack of fat loss supplements, and then they come up to the gym, and then they want to make the enrollment. And I asked them, you're looking to lose weight and you're taking a protein powder whose primary goal is to help you build muscle mass. Right now, at 110 kgs, you don't want to build any more muscle mass. You don't want to see your scale going higher. You want to be able to lose weight. You're working out like you want to lose weight, but you're eating like you want to build muscle mass. This is the problem with most of the people who say, I don't see results. That's because your nutrition is not in tune with your fitness. You want your nutrition and fitness to be in tune. Protein powders, there have been studies showing that protein powders cause something called insulin resistance. Now, when you eat food, like let's say, and this is again very common. So people start off eating food, they say they're not getting results, they'll eat lesser and lesser and lesser. I spoke to someone yesterday who says, I've been eating 900 calories from the past 5 months. Well, first of all, it's not practically possible because you're going to starve yourself so much, then you'll have binge cheat days, and that people generally don't count those calories. But let's say someone's eating 900 calories for the past 6 months in an attempt to lose weight and is not losing weight. It's not because the food habits are bad. It's really bad because you're not getting enough calories. But more than anything, your body is storing everything you eat as body fat, and that's because you have a problem with insulin resistance. So you fix the insulin resistance, a pre-diabetic condition, you're not going to have this problem of a body storing. You see people who can eat anything and get away with it, that's because they have something called insulin sensitivity. It can be fixed from nutrition, either conditions can be fixed. So insulin resistance is caused by protein powders. The sudden influx of amino acids you're getting causes insulin resistance, which you don't want when you're on a fat loss program. When you're on a fat loss program, you want to make sure that you have insulin sensitivity. So no matter what you're eating, your body is digesting it better. It's not storing it as triglyceride. So if you are on a fat loss program, don't take a protein powder. You're getting more than enough proteins from your food. Work with a nutritionist. Even if you don't work with a nutritionist, eat healthy. As long as you're eating enough calories, you're not eating 900 calories. When you're eating 900 calories, not only protein, you're not getting enough calcium, iron, zinc, magnesium, you're not getting enough of anything. It's not a protein problem itself. But as long as you're eating enough, you're exercising, you're following certain lifestyle changes, you're going to lose weight, and you don't need protein powders. Now, considering you want to go for a competition, a bodybuilding competition, when you want to go to a bodybuilding competition, you want to keep your fat percentage low. So you see people are really lean and their body fat percentage is lower than what is normal or what is natural. That's why an average bodybuilder's life is about 48 years old. It's not healthy. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's not healthy. And people confuse the two. I want a six pack because I want to be healthy. No, you want a six pack or you want to be healthy. Two separate things. So you can't have you can't, because you need that little layer of fat around you. It's very healthy. I'm not saying a big paunch, but you need a flat belly. Six pack is more than it's two steps ahead of a flat belly. So when you want to go for a bodybuilding competition where you want to keep your fat percentage very low, so you're restricting your calories and you want to make sure exactly this much is coming from protein, exactly this much from carbs, and exactly this much from fat. At that point, protein powders become important. If you're an endurance athlete, you're training for 4 to 5 hours in a day. At that point, protein powder is important. But if you're just going to the gym to reduce fat or just going to the gym training for an hour to gain muscle mass, protein powders are not necessarily important. In fact, it does cause more insulin resistance. You're doing more harm to your body than good. Don't have it.
Right. So the other question talks about like what's the most nutritious sort of plant-based alternative to the most common dairy products like paneer or milk, and yeah, so that.
Yeah. Um, again depends on what you're looking at. All the plant-based alternatives are going to be marginally better for your body because they don't have growth hormones. They don't have hormones. So it's going to be marginally better in terms of protecting you from cancer. But if you're looking at vegan cheese, vegan ghee, vegan butter, these kind of alternatives are more made for taste. From a taste perspective, they do have hydrogenated fats, they do have saturated fats. Plants don't have cholesterol, or they don't have the animal cholesterol. It's not made in the plant's body. A plant doesn't have that, but they will have certain components of saturated fats which are not good for you. So that's why a vegan diet and a plant-based diet is different. When you're on a vegan diet, you're doing it from a ethical perspective. All right, nothing wrong with the same, but not necessarily the healthiest diet. That being said, always give yourself an 80-20 rule. 80%, eat healthy. And after a while, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks, once your taste buds and your gut adapts, you look forward to those particular foods. 20% of the time, have the freedom to go out and eat what you want, celebrate birthdays, celebrate occasions. Don't limit your restrict yourself too much in terms of that, because it's okay. It's not bad. When you're looking at plant-based milk alternatives, the best suggestion would be something called plant diversity. The more diversity you have in your diet, the healthier you tend to be. So if you're only having almond milk for years together, then you have almond milk, your gut digests really well. But you'll start developing slight sensitivity or intolerance towards soy, cashew, walnut, other forms of milk. And you don't want to develop any kind of insensitivity to sensitivity towards any kind of food. That you want to have a strong gut. And the biggest predictor of a strong gut is plant diversity. So what I would do is, 1 week I would get almond milk, 1 week cashew milk, 1 week soy milk. Keep alternating your milk sources as much as possible. Keep alternating the brands also as much as possible. So let's say I love raw pressery and I get almond milk from them, but I wouldn't do it for anything longer than a month, and I would change after that, because you really never know their processing, their methods. In fact, recently I've been started learning and very educating, very interested about what goes in the manufacturing process. And one thing I read recently, which I put it on my Instagram also, was when you look at cornflakes, to increase the shelf life of cornflakes, they used to use certain chemicals which the FDA started banning because it's really bad for the body. So what the manufacturers started doing was they started using the same chemicals in the plastic cover in which the cornflakes comes. Now this way, they don't have to mention it. So there's no FDA regulation, but the plastic cover still has those chemicals. So the shelf life is still increasing, but from the plastic, it's still leaching into your food, and it's still bad for you. So, I would keep changing the brands as much as possible and make sure that there's a diversity. But otherwise, all the alternatives are marginally better. And things like almond milk and soy milk, any milk alternatives is, of course, like 200, 300 times better than dairy milk.
Absolutely. And I think your diet sounds very wholesome as well, since you say you alternate between brands and you bring in diversity. So,
Mhm.
from the perspective of an athlete, or say a person who intends to build muscle mass, how can that person ensure that their diet contains all the necessary nutrients to meet their fitness goals?
Um, Dr. Michael Greger has a beautiful fitness app. I'm forgetting the name. I think it's called the Daily Dozen. But if you just Google Dr. Michael Greger fitness app, nutrition app, not fitness, nutrition app, you'll get it. It's a free app. And he gives a list of a dozen things to consume on a daily basis. The Daily Dozen. So as long as and it's a very well designed app where every time you eat something, you just check off, so 2 servings of green leafy vegetables. I did it the first time, I check it. And then the second time I check it. And then you can compare on a monthly basis how good or bad you were in terms of improving your nutrition. If someone cannot afford a nutritionist immediately, then I think that would be the first place to start off, just to make sure you're ticking off the dozen important things in your diet. As long as you're getting these dozen things, you are getting all your micronutrient stores, and you're getting your proteins and carbs and fats and everything. So you don't have to worry about anything in terms of being deficient in the future. But that would be a good place. Daily Dozen by Dr. Michael Greger.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Also, so there's this one question which talks about a person who is lactose intolerant, and they say that they're not very sure if their body is not dairy friendly, and they say that even if they cut down dairy, they see no changes, in the
Mm.
sense that they always feel fatigued and there's a brain fog and things like that. And they mean to ask you if it's insulin resistance or if it's something else.
If you have brain fog, and the two things you mentioned was brain fog and feeling low. So I'm not sure feeling low
Brain
as in
fog,
feeling low.
fatigue, brain
Fatigue.
fog and fatigue.
Okay, so no depression, so no mood swings. If it's a brain fog and fatigue, it mostly sounds like a nutritional deficiency. Avoiding dairy alone will not fix it. And from what you're speaking, it could be a vitamin D deficiency. Sounds like a vitamin D deficiency, but also other micronutrient deficiency like iron. If you're not having enough iron, iron is responsible for carrying oxygen in your blood. And if you're not having enough iron, your hemoglobin or iron stores are less. You're getting a brain fog because not enough oxygen is going up to the brain. You're feeling low and fatigued because there's just not enough oxygen flow in the body. So it would be wise to work with someone who understands micronutrients and to help solve. When it comes to dairy intolerance, all of us are slightly intolerant to dairy. All of us slightly intolerant. Our intolerance level shows up in difference. For some, it might flare as a full-blown autoimmune disease, like a thyroid or lupus or something like that. And for some of us, it could be as simple as a few sneezes at the end of the day, which we just say is it's normal. I was speaking to another client, and she said that every morning I have a little bit of, nasal congestion, but that's completely normal because I've been forever sick. No, you're not supposed to have things like this. You're not supposed to, migraine is not a condition to live with for the rest of your life. Very much reversible in a couple of weeks. Asthma, allergies, it's not something, seasonal allergies, we regularize it. That with the end of season, I get allergies. You're not supposed to have seasonal allergies and things like that. So with that particular person, it could be micronutrient deficiency, not specifically dairy related, but also dairy. Everyone is sort of allergic to it, and you'll only know when you give up. Like the first symptom I had when I gave up for 2 3 weeks was my joint pains went away. And I say this to people very often. I was living with joint pains at the age of 21 22 for so long. I didn't even realize I had joint pains. It was just constantly always there. And I just thought that because I'm lifting really heavy weights and it's completely normal. But only when I gave up and I realized that I'm pain free for the first time, I sort of started thinking about it. How can I live for something for so long and be pain free? Should we take the questions of the people who raised their hand?
Sure, I think,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Padma, you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening. This is Padma here. Nice hearing you, Roshni. Nice
Hi, you
listening
too.
to you also. See, I'm 45 years old. I'm facing the problem of this menopause, and my bleeding is still continuously going. I learned it from my daughter that I should go this plant-based milk and this thing. So I just want to have a word with you to how to go about it. What is the first thing I should do according to you?
Yeah, good question, Padma. And your daughter's absolutely right. You should try a plant-based approach. The easiest would be to start with one meal at a time. Because mostly we come from a concern and also a lot of um, curiosity. So let's say in the next 1 week, let's say you fall sick. Touch wood never happens, but let's say you
Okay.
fall sick, you're going to start blaming a plant-based diet unnecessarily. Um, Even though it's not related, and it's very common. All of us, we are raised a certain way that you start thinking this is probably the reason. But Padma, you know
Yeah.
what's beautiful? Um, I've seen this with endometriosis, people who have
Okay.
ovarian cyst and
Mm.
endometriosis. Both the conditions can be 100% reversed on a plant-based diet. Um, in fact, I've seen clients where they go back to the gynecologist and they get their scans done again, and the gynecologist can't believe it in such a short time.
Okay.
So it's not even too much. Within 1 or 2 cycles, you'll see a difference. If you're going through menopause already, your mood swings are going to come down, hot flushes are going to go away, which is very, very a hard experience to go through because as a woman, especially in Indian families, not necessarily everyone understands mood swings. So not
Correct.
necessarily everyone understands what you're going through, and
Mm.
especially hot flushes when you have to wake up in the night again and again and go and change, and you have these episodes of extreme bleeding. It's not comfortable. It's not a nice feeling. But within a few cycles itself, you'll start seeing a difference being on a plant-based diet. Start with one meal at a time, maybe just breakfast. Challenge yourself for the next 4 days to make it plant-based. Then move to the second and the third and the fourth meal, or have a separate consultation with me. Go to my website, you'll be able to see there. And I would love to
Sure.
explore this further with you. Yeah. Pragya, you can
Sure.
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Hi, Roshni.
Hi.
Hi. Roshni, I want to ask, just now you said, you can always enjoy, 5 days you go completely plant-based, and 2 days you give your time and eat anything. But I have recently changed completely. My diet has been completely changed. I felt whenever I actually think it is as a reward day for me whenever I'm eating out or but then sometimes it happens I'm not able to digest the food. I mean, am I something is happening inside my so what should I do in that case? Because it's very difficult, whenever you socialize or go somewhere, you need to have everything, you need to have some need to relish your pastries also. And so what should we do in such condition? And it's
Yeah.
really difficult for me. Nowadays I fear going outside and socializing with people. So what should I do? And I'm a vegetarian, by the way. So it's not a very tough thing, but then how to manage?
Good question, Pragya. So thank you so much for asking. It gives me a chance to clarify. When I really say go out and eat anything, I genuinely was speaking still eat plant-based, to switch to like a non-vegetarian or vegetarian diet, still eat plant. And the reason the cakes came was I just had some amazing. You get these Crave Valina cakes in India, which are all vegan. I had some amazing cakes, so that's why I thought of cake. When I was talking to you, I'll tell you why your condition is happening, and this is irrespective of vegan, non-vegan. I'll tell you what's happening in your case, then I'll tell you the emotional and physical aspect of it, and I'll try to cover everything in 2 minutes because we are running out of time. In your case, it sounds like you have something called gut dysbiosis. Gut dysbiosis happens when we go on a diet. That's why I never put any of my clients on a diet. When you go on a diet, you're restricting your food groups. That is, you have certain foods which are allowed, certain foods which are not allowed. Now, think of a gut. A gut is our stomach. A lot of bacteria live in our stomach. And think of it like a huge society with different houses. Okay, so there's a huge society in our stomach with different houses. Each house is one particular colony or type of bacteria. Okay, so there's multiple different colonies. Let's say you went on a diet where they told you don't eat rice. Yeah, and you stopped eating rice. Now, because you stopped eating rice, the rice loving colony in the society, they are not getting any food because they love only rice, they'll eat only rice. So they eventually start shrinking and they die. Now there's no longer rice loving bacteria. So every time you re-eat rice on your cheat days or your happy days, whatever, you're going out and enjoying that meal, because you don't have that particular colony of bacteria to digest it, it flares out as symptoms. You get acidity, you get bloating, you feel uneasiness because you don't have the colony of bacteria to digest it. Happens only with plant-based food. That's why plant diversity in the plants you're eating is important. Does not happen with chicken. So if you leave chicken and you're going to reintroduce it into your diet, you're only going to get inflammation, which anyways you get when you eat animal foods. So that's why don't go on a diet. Go on a nutrition program which helps you identify how different plants are important. If you're including diversity, this problem is not going to happen. Over time, as you train your gut to be stronger, that is, the amount of good bacteria in your gut start increasing, those few meals outside, which happens with all of us. So if I'm going on a 2-day vacation to Goa, as long as it's plant based, I'll eat anything, absolutely anything. And nothing happens. No weight gain happens, no bloating happens, nothing happens because the gut is strong. Eating foods of different variety. But the more you're limiting your food, someone said don't eat wheat, go on a gluten-free diet, you stop eating wheat. Someone says don't eat grains. Someone says don't eat that. So the more you're reducing diversity, the more you're going to flare up with problems like that. In
uh,
your
uh,
case also, Pragya.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say it's not only about like wheat or something specific. It's about oil too. Sometimes because we can't trust on oils, and obviously I am using nut butters basically. I don't use oil at home, any kind of oil. So maybe that can be the reason. But then how can you, I live in a small town. I live in a very small town in Uttar Pradesh, and we don't have such kind of restaurant, or people are not conscious at all about what they are cooking at home even. So it's so difficult. I mean, every time saying no, I won't eat just because I have a problem, it doesn't work. You understand?
Your
And
problem is caused because of gut dysbiosis. There's another client of mine here, Smira. She's this very cute, very bubbly, very young child. She's in the participants right now, who's also from a small town. And she's a child. She's literally a child, taken health into her own hands. and we do food diary checks. So we do, we are supposed to update the food diary. She lives in a small town also. And initially, she used to message us back every now and then. I can't find mushrooms. I can't find kale. I can't find this. I can't find that. And the amount of diversity, I really wish it's a breach of privacy. So I can't show you the food diary. But if you look at her food diary pictures, she's managed to fill it with so much color. We have this misconception that if you're in a small town, you're not having access to food. In fact, if anything, you have access to more diversity because you find local greens, local grains, local fruits and vegetables only in small towns. You don't get it in bigger places like, Bangalore. Even if you do get it, it's a lot of taken from there. So you have pesticides, herbicides, all of that. But also Smira's managed to reverse her PCOS being on a plant-based diet. She enjoys her cheats when she goes out. She's a baker herself, so she does baking. So all I'm trying to say is, in your case, it's just your gut is weak right now. Train your gut, you're not going to have issues. It'll take time to train the gut. It won't happen in an overnight process. Only way to train the gut is include diversity, as much diversity as possible in your food. And then you'll be able to start training your gut slowly. Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Roshni.
of course.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I
Panchali,
have.
we can go
I
ahead
just
with
need
any
to ask
last.
one more question, Roshni. Can I do so?
I don't know if we have the time
Okay, okay.
from the one of
Pragya,
the hosts. Just up to me. Yeah.
you can do is you can drop us the mail, you can revert to our mail, and we'll have Roshni answer the question for you, if that's all
Okay,
right.
Sure.
sure. I will definitely.
Great. Um, Roshni, do you want to take one last question
Yes,
or?
yes. I'll go ahead. I'll take it. Go ahead. You have a lot of
Okay,
questions coming, so I don't want to. Yeah.
right. So the question is, what would be the most important advice that you can provide when one wants to transition into a vegan or a plant-based lifestyle?
Um, Take support, work with people. The easiest thing when I was transitioning myself, I joined a lot of vegan groups, Facebook vegan groups, and Instagram influencers who are vegan. I started following people. Don't try to do it all on your own. It's much easier when you have support around you. And especially the vegan groups, the India based vegan groups on Facebook are very, very proactive in terms of helping people transition. As long as you genuinely want to help, many people, it's a lot about if you're going in from an argumentative perspective, but I have cows coming from farms, and but I don't, no one is trying to put ethical views on you. That's a separate thing. So from a health perspective, when you're asking genuine questions, people are going to more than willingly love to answer your questions. In fact, even with me, if any of you have messaged me on Instagram, I would always reply you with support. Unless you ask me for a detailed diet plan, I'm not going to give that. But if you have questions, I would love to answer you, because you shouldn't feel alone in this journey. And especially, I understand how scary it is. So take support from people, join Instagram, Facebook groups, and ask questions whenever in doubt. There's so many resources out there, so you'll get help. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think that's a great, suggestion because a lot of us who've already transitioned into a vegan lifestyle also face the same problem. So that's great.
Yeah.
Just one last question. Um, if milk and dairy products are not necessary for humans, then why has this habit been passed down for generations along and our ancestors were healthy despite consuming it? So,
Yeah, good question. Remember how I shared a picture of the Starbucks mug and the cup of coffee? So, our
right.
dairy consumption, if you genuinely look through the ages and through centuries, and you look at an Ayurvedic diet plate or pick up one of the books and read it, dairy played a very, very small role. It didn't play a very big role. There was no meat, no question of meat. But the funny part is now when I'm studying more and more into Ayurvedic nutrition in today's generation have started including meat also. But this wasn't the case before. So dairy did not play a role as much as we make it in our head. Dairy consumption in India has drastically increased. Even if you compare for the population increase, it's drastically gone up. Um, an average household, I want to say, of two consumes 5 liters of milk a week or something like that, which is quite a lot. So it has drastically increased. Dairy adulteration has drastically increased. And the easiest way to explain this is when you were 30, what, 6 7 decades before, you didn't have access to so many hormonal disruptors in the environment. Like example, if you're getting some extra estrogen from the dairy milk, or extra sex hormones or extra growth hormones from the dairy milk, you were only getting it from dairy milk. But in the generation we live today, everything we are exposed to around us, like you go to a mall and you shop and you get the receipt, the checkout receipt. The receipt, when you touch it, that paper has estrogen hormone disruptors. So through that paper, it's getting into our skin. And I've done a video on this on Instagram. And you're getting estrogen from that. So you're getting sex hormones from that into our body. Everything we touch around, like I have a cream over here. This would, if I read the ingredient contents, it'll have certain amount of hormone disruptors. So when I'm working with clients, I send them a list of hormone disruptors and I tell them compare all your skincare products and hair care products of how many hormone disruptors are there. And you'll be shocked. Pretty much everything they use from toothpaste to floor cleaners will have hormone disruptors. So now along with all that, you're also getting hormone disruptors from dairy and the amount of adulteration done in the dairy milk in general. So you can't compare what they were doing to now because it's two different generations. And even then, they were not consuming as much as we are doing right now. Yeah. So that would be a wrong comparison.
I think you've gotten a great point by, saying that everything that we see around ourselves is full of animal products. And of course, we don't even realize in what senses all the products that we use has a bit of animal derivatives. So that's a wonderful, that I'm just truly inspired and like so enlightened rather by the discussion today. So I'd like to mention to all those people whose questions we were unable to answer in the session today because of the time constraints, that we will have them answered from our facilitator and send them to you via mail. So
And I'm having another Instagram live tomorrow at 11:30 to answer more questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to join in at that time and ask your questions there. This is specifically on a vegan diet again, so you can ask your questions.
great.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add before we conclude?
No, that's about it. Thank you so much, guys, for having me over. And
Yeah,
anyone has anything else, feel free to reach out. I would love to help.
that's lovely to know. So we have our next webinar scheduled, which is on the Dairy Talk. It's scheduled on the 26th of June and will be facilitated by Ms. Vinita, who is a plant-based nutritionist and facilitator in Sharan. This session will also give you a deeper understanding on how consuming dairy impacts your body and whether it declines or increases immunity, and if it makes the consumers more vulnerable to lifestyle diseases and like diabetes, cancers, and so on. So, Ms. Vinita will also be sharing some easy homemade dairy-free alternatives that you can, easily make with um, available ingredients at home, just simple available ingredients at home. So, the link for the registration will be updated on both our websites and our social media. So, feel free to follow us there. And Ankit, I'd like to invite Ankit again to share his thoughts.
Hi, Panch. Thank you so much. Firstly, Roshni, thank you so much for taking this session for us. I mean, it's every time I meet you, it's always insightful. It's always something new to learn. And I'm really grateful to you for having taken this session. I would like to apologize to all the members in the audience as well as Roshni because the chat box was just not happening. We tried literally everything to enable it, but it was just not happening. However, if you do have any questions, and we do know there were some questions which have been unanswered because of the time constraints, as Panchajanya said, please do email it to us. You can also WhatsApp them on the number that we shared the message with you on, and we will definitely try to get as many of them answered from Roshni within the next few days as she gets the time to answer them. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will be having more webinars. We are having 2 more webinars this month as part of the campaign Red Not White Dairy is Utter Nonsense. So do keep tab on our page. We were planning to share in the links and everything in the chat box, but because the chat box was not working, we will be emailing various links to all of you so that you can refer to them. But yes, thank you so much, Roshni, and thank you so much, everyone, for attending it.
It was truly thank you so much, Ankit. It's truly inspiring to hear both you and Roshni talk at this point. So, of course, I'm pretty sure that I'm speaking on behalf of each and everyone present in the audience today, that it was a truly marvelous and thoughtful session that we had. And all of us at Voiceless India are grateful to you, Ms. Roshni, for joining us today and taking our time from your schedule. I would also like to thank each and everyone present in the audience today who's attending the webinar. Thank you for your questions, and you've been a great audience. We're hoping to see you in the next webinar scheduled on 26th of June as well, and also the one on 30th. So until then, take care and have a great evening.